Line of Wallace Pearson Travel, since there are a few newbies in that audience. We did start as the travel agency in 1974. My husband and I moved up from Miami. We were both with Pan Am and saw the writing on the wall long before it happened. But we came up here and opened in the old schoolhouse, and if you haven't been there lately, it is now the most adorable 17-room inn. The bar is the principal's office, and it's open from 3 to 9 every 9 to 3 to 9 every afternoon to the public. And if you haven't been, it's a real treat. You should stop in and try it. And when you're there, just envision, because that's exactly where our suite of offices were, and Jim's desk was right where the bar is. And it would be so happy. But anyway, we've come a long way since '74, and we are now Wallace Pearson Travel, right across the street from, or right on the corner of Amelia Park. People say travel agents, oh, they get to travel all the time, and it's awesome, and we do take advantage of it when we can, when we're not here working for you guys. But we do it with an eye to what you need and to develop the relationships that then we have to call on when you're traveling, and to make sure that your travels are as beautifully planned as they can possibly be and meet all of your needs. And we're part of a group called Virtuoso, which pairs the best of the travel agency world with the best of the travel supplier world. And through them, we have amazing relationships all over the globe with companies like Tauck. And we're just so happy and proud of our relationship with Tauck and Jennifer Thorson, who is now going to take you around the world Tauck style. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's a pleasure for me to be here to work with my friends here at Wallace Pearson Travel. They are the best, really. They're so knowledgeable, they're experienced, they're going to make your trip as seamless as possible. And if you have an idea about where you'd like to go, not sure how you'd like to do it, they're going to talk to you, find out what your expectations are, and really try to fit the best supplier for you to go with. So, and besides that, they're just nice people. So yeah, I strongly encourage whatever you do, make sure to go see somebody before you leave home, somebody from Wallace Pearson. So yes, I'm from Tauck. How many of you have been on a Tauck trip before? Okay, a few of you. Now, you guys told me you've been on 5 already. Yeah. Did you have something in common that you liked about your trips? One particular something?
The hotels are always wonderful.
And you take care of everything.
We take care of everything. Yeah, that's true. Now, you guys just came back from a really nice trip. Where did you go?
Australia, New Zealand.
And I asked what you liked about it.
Well,
Pick a spot in New Zealand. Australia's wonderful too. I mean, I hate to take anything away from that, but New Zealand's unique.
tour guides are top notch. The logistics of that kind of trip would be so hard for any one individual to try to do everything we did. And just everything. The hotels, of course, were beautiful. And everything we did. So many interesting, unique experiences.
I'll give you a little check on the way out. Who else has traveled? You've traveled with us a few times.
4, and our most recent one was with Debbie Kellogg to South Africa.
Oh, how was it?
It was great, and we had basically 10 of us that were all from here. And it got to be known as what was Debbie's family. So we were Debbie's family. It was great.
Good. Anybody else have something they'd like to share? No? Okay, so for those of you that haven't traveled with us, I didn't bribe these people to come in and say these things, but we'll talk about how we do what we do. First, I'm going to show you a video. It's the history of Tauck, and it's narrated by the filmmaker Ken Burns. If you're not familiar with Ken Burns, he's a documentarian. He makes documentaries. He's done a number of those. Civil War, baseball, national parks. That was a 6-part series. Took 10 years to produce. What else has he done? He's done most recently the Vietnam War. He's done a number of documentaries. They're only ever aired on PBS. And when Tauck came knocking, I'm gonna say it was about 7 or 8 years ago, he said, I don't need any commercial relationships. I do everything on PBS and I'm very happy with that. But then he learned more about the company and he realized, you know what? He felt that we do in travel what he does in film, and it was really a symbiotic relationship. We're both telling the same story. So he's a great partner of ours. If you come with us to any one of the places that he's researched before and he's done a film on, there'll be vignettes. There'll be along the way, like on the national park trip that you guys did. There'll be little films that he's done specifically for that itinerary in certain places. And he's also helped choreograph certain itineraries. He's introduced us to great lecturers that he knows firsthand, so he's been a great resource for us. And we also do a number of events, and I'll talk about that because those are sometimes featured, they're really focused on one of his documentaries. They're really living that documentary. Like we have one coming up this month, called Jazz. And it's really all about his jazz documentary, only you're living it. You have private concerts every day, you get to meet him, he's a keynote speaker, and it's really like the Ken Burns film 3D.
Where is that?
That's in New Orleans. So we're gonna start out with that video.
All I want is a congenial party. 10 minutes after leaving Newark, we shall be just one happy party. Properly chaperoned, out for a real good time. I want no grouches or pessimists. Arthur C. Tauck.
In the summer of 1925, the son of an immigrant, 27-year-old Arthur C. Tauck, loaded a handful of passengers into a Studebaker for a carefully planned 1,000-mile vacation through New York and New England. It marked in many ways the fulfillment of his father's quest for the American dream. It also signified the beginning, not just of an enduring family company, but also of a new industry, which has enabled countless travelers to experience the natural wonders and fascinating cultures of the world in ways they could never do on their own. This is a family story, spanning 3 generations of innovation and a tireless pursuit of excellence. It can be traced back to that sunny July day on the dusty roads of New England.
My dad was a guy who really was uneducated. He went to the 7th grade. He was 14 years old, and he had to go to work, so he became a bank messenger in New York City. One night, while they were lowering a cigar box filled with rolled coin down through a dumbwaiter shaft, they kind of handed it down rather than run the dumbwaiter to the vaults below. The end of the cigar box broke, and 3,000 dimes scattered in the grease at the bottom of the shaft. And my father got fired for doing that. The bank manager told him, when you find a better way to handle coin, you get your job back. So you've seen them. You can go into a supermarket or a bank and they have these aluminum coin boxes. That was his invention. So he brought them back, got his job back. He found that he could sneak out at lunch hour and he could sell those boxes to neighboring banks, and he was making more money selling those boxes at lunch hour than he was as a teller. So he quit his job. He now had independence, and he went on the road as a salesman.
Arthur Tauck reveled in life on the road, meeting new people and discovering hidden gems along the routes he traveled throughout New York and New England. One day, on a selling trip in 1924, Arthur was having lunch at the Wigwam restaurant at the top of the Mohawk Trail in the Berkshires of Western Massachusetts. He noticed that most of the other patrons were business travelers like himself. He wondered why so few people made this trip simply to enjoy the magnificent scenery. One thought led to another. Would vacationers be willing to travel with a knowledgeable guide, he wondered? He then hit on a revolutionary idea. What if he arranged his own tour and charged customers one price that covered all expenses, not just transportation, but a knowledgeable guide, meals, boarding houses, museum fees, even bellhop tips? He started to sketch out his first itinerary.
And so he advertised in the Newark Evening News for people to take his next selling trip. And he got 6 people to take his next selling trip. And he had a good time. And he did it as a lark. He was a kid. But he had so many letters from the friends of those people that he ran 3 such trips the next year. And then he had so many letters, he bought a bus, and that was really the beginning.
Arthur had no intention of foregoing his coin tray business. But the referrals from his happy guests created significant demand for more motor tours. And Arthur soon realized that he could guide these travelers full-time. Arthur acquired a small fleet of buses and developed several tours beyond New York and New England, including Virginia, Nova Scotia, and Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains. 10 years after Arthur's first tour, Tauck Tours was given the first tour broker license, and the guided travel industry was born. Survival was not always easy for Tauck, and the ability to adapt and find a way to evolve is an important part of the Tauck story. The Great Depression and the new airline industry threatened Tauck's existence. During World War II, the US government forced Tauck to shut down for 5 years as part of the war effort. It was only after the urging of his loyal following that a reluctant Arthur reopened the business after the war.
I think the thing that I learned most from him was you have to do things right. You don't put up with anything that's second best. He was so far in that direction that we didn't like to go to Sunday dinner with him at a restaurant, because if the crackers weren't warmed, he would scream at the waiter and it would be embarrassing for us.
His son, Arthur Jr., joined the family business full-time in 1956 and made his mark very quickly by being the first to charter an aircraft for leisure travel. In 1958, he became Tauck's president.
Good morning, Tauck Tours. Donna speaking.
Arthur Jr. expanded his father's vision and grew Tauck to a travel brand respected the world over. New destinations and new ways to experience them, including helicopters and trains, multiplied throughout North America and Hawaii. In 1991, he developed innovative itineraries throughout Europe.
Arthur Tauck never settles, and he has a real singular focus on the guest experience. We have a saying internally that you can go to a restaurant and if the steak's not cooked properly, give it back, or if you order a shirt's not fitted right, you can have it resized or whatever. But with travel, you can't return it. It only happens once. And so we all now share that same philosophy in how we operate the business today.
As demand for international travel grew, Arthur Jr. passed the torch to the 3rd generation of Taucks. Tauck's offerings soon expanded across all 7 continents, from Alaska to Antarctica, Africa to Asia. New trips were developed not just based on where Tauck traveled, but how one traveled. River cruising in Europe was first introduced by Tauck in 1993, long before that craze took hold. Small ship cruising was developed to explore destinations best experienced by water.
Wow.
Tauck Bridges represented the first guided adventures designed specifically for families. More recently, Tauck has developed events and unique partnerships that offered exclusive, once-in-a-lifetime experiences.
People want authentic experiences. They want to be more immersed in the cultures when they travel. And so those trends bode well, I think, for Tauck very much. People say the world's been discovered. How are we going to keep discovering the world? And I don't believe that at all. I think there'll always be new ways to experience the world. So the future, I think, is very bright for Tauck and for our customers.
Arthur Tauck Sr. would still recognize in every Tauck trip today his simple, brilliant formula, what he called the ideal vacation, that is still the heart of every journey Tauck develops and guides to this day. He would also recognize something of himself, a restless desire to keep moving forward, to constantly make things better and better still. This pursuit of excellence and pioneering spirit have enabled Tauck to seek and find new ways to see the world that are just as fresh today as Arthur Tauck's first tour on those roads of New England.
So we feel that how you see the world really matters, and we want to show it to you in the best way we possibly can. We feel that travel has the opportunity to be life-changing, and I'm sure when Eric and Angela and the girls come back, they will have so many great experiences that, you know, there's nothing that can top those experiences. And I'm sure you feel that way too. So many of your travel experiences, you felt that, wow, they were so impactful. We want to take the logistics out of the equation so your mind is free and in the moment, so you don't have to think of all those little things. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about transfers. Regardless of how you get to the start of one of our trips, we'll pick you up at the airport, we'll take you back to the airport. A cute little story. My friend Sam was meeting his friend Jenny, and they were going on our Pacific Northwest trip. It starts in Seattle. They both were flying from different places, so they both landed at different times. Well, he got in his car, and he got a text from her, and she was in her car. So he called her. He said, "Hey, I'm in a Cadillac Escalade. This is pretty cool." She said, "I'm in a Tesla." Luggage handling, you don't have to worry about that. It'll be in your room. It'll be in your next room. It's nice and easy, so you don't have to think about that. Internet access, always included in the hotels. And I have a question for you guys. How many of you like food? Okay, so we want to offer you lots of choices. I think before people take their first escorted tour, they think, oh, I'm going to be stuck with the same people from the beginning of the trip to the end of the trip. We don't do the group dining thing, you know. We stay away from that wherever possible. So most of the time you can have dinner anytime you'd like to, sit with whoever you'd like to join, if you'd like to join people, and order what you'd like to order. I was a tour director for about 10 years. One of the trips that I did quite frequently was our Cape Cod trip. What do you think people ordered 6 nights out of 7? Lobster. Yeah, sure. Chowder too. I can't tell you how many times I took my guests back to Logan and they would say, oh, too much lobster. Yeah, so we want to offer you all those things to make it nice and easy for you. But you mentioned the hotels. And yes, after a decade of being a tour director, I'm a little spoiled. Yeah, the Hampton Inn doesn't really compare to, the Fairmont properties around the world. This is the Hotel Sofitel in Hanoi. If you guys were watching the news last week, there was a little meeting that went on there. So we stay there in Vietnam. If you come with us on our Peru and Galapagos itinerary, we stay at the Belmont on the top of Machu Picchu. And because we do that, it really changes your experience. Why? Because the train goes up with the tourists and turns around and goes back down in the afternoon. When you stay overnight, you have the opportunity to go to the site when nobody else is there but the people that are staying up there too. So you can see the sunset, sunrise next day, and really, it changes. You feel very privileged to have that opportunity. Our tour directors are all trained and knowledgeable. They're going to teach you about where you are, and best of all, they're not going to sell you a thing. I say take the Band-Aid off quickly. Sightseeing is always included. So you go to our friends at Wallace Pearson, you give them your credit card, you pay up front, and it's done. We're not selling you anything when you get there. So it's nice not to have to think about all those things. I have a very good friend who works for another company. Right now she's doing a 28-day Australia-New Zealand trip, and most of the places she's never been to before. Yeah. For every new trip that I learned, and the 249 other tour directors with Tauck, they were trained on every new trip, not once but twice. So we would shadow somebody who had been running that trip for a long time, learn about the logistics, about the culture, about the history, how much walking there was, what was on menus in case we had a dietary concern, you know, and not only that, but we got to assign that same destination for a good portion of the season. So one trip that I ran quite frequently was our Week in France program. It would start in Nice, finish in Paris. When I'd be done, I'd fly back to Nice from Paris, and I'd do it again, and I'd do it again. So I did feel like I knew all the bumps in Provence in the road. And also, I felt like I knew, and I probably still do, every bathroom between Nice and Paris. My friend Denise can't tell you that stuff. And she's got 28 days of that, you know, uh-oh. She texted me, she said, I hope I can fake it. I'm hoping she can too, because 28 days with the same people, uh-oh. Yeah, I could never do that. But I think it's all about the details. It's how we show you the places that we show you. So here's some examples. This is a picture that I took on our Botswana trip. We had not one, not two, but 3 helicopter rides. Actually, one was only scheduled as a sightseeing trip, but 2 of the camps we couldn't get into because it was muddy, so that was our plan B. Was a helicopter to get us there, and it was pretty cool. If you come with us on our Hidden Gems of New England itinerary, which nobody wants to be at today because they just got 14 inches of snow, we'll take you to Walpole, New Hampshire, and we take you into Ken Burns' private studios. It's not open to the public, but because we have that great partnership, he's happy to welcome you, and if he's there, he's happy to meet you. This is a photo that I took in Tanzania. This is where we have our welcome cocktail party. You know, it's not a fancy ballroom in a hotel, but it's the perfect setting. It's magical. It's sunset time, we're having drinks, we're watching elephants and zebras, there's dormant volcanoes in the back. There's nothing like it. Yeah, if you look out of the corner of your eye, you might see a man with a long rifle doing this. But we don't pay attention to him, and we had a good time. And this reminds me, for every new itinerary, we do at least 2 years of research and development before it goes into a brochure. Most companies don't do that. So this reminds me of our Rome, Capri, and our Amalfi Coast trip. Before we developed that itinerary, the product managers sketched down some ideas of how much time they wanted to stay in each place they wanted to go to. And this particular itinerary, they thought, oh, we'd stay maybe 3/4 of a day on the island of Capri. So they went out there initially to scout it out, and they realized they couldn't just have our guests stay for 3/4 of a day on Capri. You needed to spend more time there because the island changes every single day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Why does it do that?
The tourists go home.
Exactly. The tourists go home, the hydrofoils go back, the people go back to the cruise ships. There aren't that many hotels. And you get to talk to the locals. You can go out to the piazza and have a Bellini, you know, and that's where all the beautiful people are hanging out. You really feel like you're more a part of the island. So we're privileged. We have great relationships around the globe with hoteliers, and we get to stay at one of the best hotels. I was just reading the world's best list in Condé Nast, the Quintessana, one of the best hotels in Italy, and we stay there for a couple nights. So the product manager still had to figure out how we were going to take you around the island, how we were going to show it to you. And they were offered these vans. These vans were nondescript, nothing really spectacular. And I'm like, that doesn't really feel like a good fit. So they did a little more digging. They talked to some concierge who directed them to some taxi drivers, and they came upon this taxi driver who was really well connected. His name was Roberto. And Roberto had a convertible, and he had a friend named Stefano who had a convertible, and Gianfranco who had a convertible, and that's how we take you around the island, is in a fleet of convertibles. When you come with us to Alaska, we're going to include the float plane ride. So again, it's easy and it offers you a better perspective. If you come with us to Africa, we don't crowd the safari jeeps. Why would you go to such an amazing destination and get stuck in a middle seat? We wouldn't do that to you. Everybody's got a window seat when you travel with us. We have great partnerships, as I mentioned. BBC Earth is very similar to National Geographic. If you're not familiar with them, you probably know Planet Earth on the Discovery Channel. They do amazing videography, and our partnership lends itself to every itinerary that we have that has a focus on animals like Costa Rica, Alaska, Africa, India, Nepal, all of those. We have little vignettes, little videos from BBC Earth specific to those itineraries, and also we have the gadgets along the way that you can play with. So the long-range microphones, you put the headsets on, you can hear the elephants 2 miles off in the distance. You can put the night vision goggles or the infrared cameras. Those are all tour directors carrying those around in case you want to try those out. We have the private dome car in Switzerland on the Glacier Express, and we also have a new partnership with Rocky Mountaineer and Gold Leaf Service up in the Canadian Rockies. And for those of you that really don't love the airport experience these days, if you come with us to Australia and New Zealand, you won't have to worry about it. You'll get there and it's done. We take you in private planes from one place to the next place to the next place, so you're not spending all day going through security, waiting in line, you know, hauling your bags, all that stuff. It's easy. And then our lecturers around the globe, they're really good. We have so many different ones. This is a picture of Celia Sands. She's a granddaughter of Winston Churchill. So on some of our trips in London, she'll come out, she'll talk to you, and she'll tell you all kinds of stories about her grandfather. Not just historical stories, but some of the juicy ones. There's one story that I heard. So she was a girl, and she was on the Christina, which is Onassis's yacht, and she noticed something. She was up really late. She thought everybody was sleeping, and she saw Onassis going from his cabin with Jackie over to Maria Callas's cabin. Yeah. We also have a woman, also in London, whose name is probably not a household name. Her name is Carolyn Robb, and she's going to tell you a story about this family with 2 young boys, and it's really going to melt your heart. Why? Because she was the private chef to Princess Di and Prince Charles. Yeah, we have up in the Baltic, if you come with us on our small ship cruise, we have a man who was a member of Gorbachev's parliament. So he's going to tell you all kinds of stories about the KGB, the Russian government, all kinds of things. Very interesting. So you've learned from the video, we're a family-run company. It's the 3rd generation of the Tauck family. We've been in business since 1925, so 94 years. And for those of you that aren't that familiar with us, it's probably because we don't advertise. I was just on a flight on Sunday. I got my Condé Nast to take with me, and I put the magazine down, and it opened itself up in the middle. There was a 24-page brochure in the middle from a cruise line. I thought, wow, how many millions did they have to spend to put that in there, right? Where does that money come from? It comes from the cruise price, the tour price. We feel if we put more into the experience, and you'll come home and say, that was such a good trip, and you might tell somebody about it, and then you'll want to go, and they'll want to go. How many of you here have heard about us from a friend, a neighbor, a relative? Quite a few of you, yes. Since 1925, anybody want to take a guess at how many people we've taken with us? 3.5 million. Yeah, all by word of mouth. Yeah, so that's what we like to do. When they send myself up to the office in Connecticut, and thankfully they don't do it in the wintertime, they share all kinds of things with us. And there's always one number that sticks in my mind, and it's, usually differs by 0.01% each year or something like that. But 96.7 is the number that's in my mind from this year. Does anybody want to take a guess at what that represents?
Customer satisfaction.
Exactly. Based on this, at the end of every trip, you did it 5 times. Based on this experience, would you travel with Tauck again? And 96.7% of our guests say yes, we will travel with you again. So it's a good place to be. We have, does anybody know what a Net Promoter Score is? Eric? No? Okay. It's how many times something is organically recommended on the internet. And our Net Promoter Score is very high. It's higher than some of the most popular companies. Google, Amazon, and Apple. It's higher than all 3 of those. Not put together, but each of those.
This is terrible, but what is organically recommended? What does
So when somebody says, I think, like Cruise Critic will say, we recommend going on a Tauck River cruise. They're voted #1. Or Virtuoso, we're voted #1 like 14 years in a row, best tour operator. So they recommend they recommend people to travel with us. Or Angela might have on her blog, on this Tauck trip, I recommend you to go. So it's how many times it's positively promoted. It's not sprouts in the ground.
Thank you.
So we have all these brands, all these different ways to travel. Our Tauck World Discovery encompasses our land programs, which would be North America, Europe, and our exotic itineraries. And I'm not going to talk to you about itineraries because we have more than 150 of them, and we don't have all day. But when I talk to you about where you'd like to go, I'd like you to think about how you would like to travel. I think a lot of people, before they go to certain places, they think, I'm going to hop on a cruise ship. And I think, sometimes you really need to go by land because you miss some things when you go by a cruise ship. For example, Hawaii. We spend 2 or 3 nights in the same places, gorgeous hotels right on the ocean, and you're eating the Asian Pacific cuisine. You can eat right off the menu, you have all these great experiences, a private chef in Maui, you have a private dinner at the Aulani Palace, you do your own private luau, all those cool things. I think about the Mediterranean. When I think about people going to Italy and they're going on a Mediterranean cruise, I think, I hope that's their first trip. Because to me, it's just a sample. Because to me, you really need to go back after that. To go on a cruise ship, you are usually a couple hours away from where you want to be when you're in the port. I was a shore excursion manager before I worked for Tauck. And I remember coming into the port of Civitavecchia to have my guests go into Rome. It was an hour and a half to get into the city. So we spent a 3-hour round trip on a bus, you know, and we did the Vatican and the Colosseum, and that's pretty much it. We had a panini for lunch. We really didn't have time to walk over to the Spanish Steps and see how it comes alive at night, like you can when you spend 3 nights there and your hotel's centrally located. You don't have the opportunity to really immerse yourselves in that beautiful cuisine and that amazing grape juice. And talk to those people, the people that are serving your meals, you know, cleaning your rooms, you're talking to them all the time. And you have free time too. So I would say think about that. When you think about your next trip, think about how you would like to go instead of just where you would like to go. We have over 30, I think 39 different itineraries in Europe. Lots of ways to travel. My friend Nanette took this picture. She took her daughter on one of our family trips last year, and she took this picture. How many of you recognize this room in Europe? Sistine Chapel, yeah. How many of you remember, how many of you have been there? How many of you remember it to be peaceful, calm, and relaxing? Not at all. So Deb went there. And so, yes, so my friend Nanette and her daughter Dylan think that this is how it is all day, every day. Because she traveled with us, and we go after hours. We go at 6 or 6:30 at night. So you're not crowded. You know, when you go during the day, your guide is out, and you're in this little room, and he's explaining everything to you, because you can't speak inside the Sistine Chapel. So when you get in there, your guide's still out there, or he's already gone outside. Yeah, and it's not quite the same. So when you go at night with us after it's closed, it's just us. You can take your camera in, your guide is with you, and it's amazing. It really does change the experience. If you come with us to the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, we get in before it opens. If you're on a river cruise on the Seine with us, we get into Monet's Gardens, Giverny, before it opens. We have trips where we can take you to the Louvre, and we're the only ones in front of the Mona Lisa because we go after hours. If you come with us to the National Archives, we get in to see the original documents, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, before it opens. So you're not waiting in line, you don't feel hurried, you have that experience. So it really does change the experience a little bit. Our exotics, bucket list trips, I can tell you, I have to do every one before I die, and they keep coming out with new ones. But there's nothing like them. They really are bucket list trips. How many of you have had a thought in your minds maybe to go to Australia and New Zealand one day, but it's so darn far away that, you know, you keep on putting it on the back burner? Okay, so what do you guys? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What would you say?
Go now.
What I'm, you know what? There's so many gorgeous things to see.
Right.
Really, so many beautiful things to see. It's such a great experience that I would say it's not going to get any closer. Just go, and you won't be sorry. We have 3 different itineraries. We have the Grand Australia New Zealand, which you guys did. It's 20 days with all the privately chartered flights. We have Australia, which is a 9-day land, and then we have a 9-day cruise and a 2-more-night land in New Zealand. And the cruise is on a small cruise ship, one of the Ponant ships. And then next year we'll also have a 15-day Australia and a 15-day New Zealand for people that have been there before and want to go to Adelaide and they want to spend time on Tasmania and all of those things. So it's more immersive. Who's been on safari? Was it the best place? Was Africa? Did you fall in love with Africa?
Yes, it's very, yeah. We stayed at very nice places.
What?
Got sick a lot.
You got sick? Oh, I'm sorry. I love Africa. In fact, I never thought I needed to go to Africa. I've been to the zoo before. Why not? But I was invited by the zoo down in Naples, Florida to do a presentation for them. And 150 people RSVP'd, so we had to cut the RSVPs off. This was a decade ago. And these people had the audacity to come to my presentation, and I really didn't know what I was talking about. I thought I could just put some images together, talk to some of the tour directors, learn. Well, one lady had been on our Kenya, Tanzania trip before. Another lady that called in had, her husband had been the executive director of the zoo in Chicago. And another woman had the audacity to call in to say that she was coming to listen to me and had just got back from staying at Jack Hanna's house in Rwanda. So I realized if we were going to keep that relationship up, that I really needed to go for my own education. I really didn't think I needed to go, but I went. And wow, magical. I fell in love with it. So many superlatives. It's a feast for all of your senses, absolutely. It's the sunsets, it's the stars, you feel like you can pluck them out of the sky. It's looking at all these exotic trees, the baobabs, the acacia trees. You know, you see these termite mounds and they look like pieces of art, sculptures. You're looking at elephants and zebras and wildebeests and warhogs and all these things in their natural element, and they live harmoniously. Well, not always when they kill each other. But it's a combination of all those amazing, the plants and the birds and all these things, and the people that you meet. You can't duplicate that, you know? And they're happy. These people are happy. You'll be taken to a school. If you come with us, we go to a school. And you know, these kids sometimes walk over an hour each way to get to this school, just to be educated. School is a cinder block building. It doesn't have running water. It doesn't have a cafeteria. These kids are there all day. We donate things every time we go, so they do have desks. They do have some things now. But, you know, these kids are happy. They're sitting like 3 or 4 to a desk, just crammed in there. They're just these smiles on their faces. You take a picture of them, you turn around and show them the picture, and they're trying to figure out which one is them because they don't have a mirror at home. Yeah, it's such an experience, yeah. You ask them, you know, what they like to eat. You can't say, do you like hamburger, do you like pizza? Because what do they eat? Porridge, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Porridge, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Unless they have a big feast and somebody gets a goat, you know, but that's what they eat, that's what their lives are like. And they've got these smiles on their faces all the time. So, when I win the lottery, I'm going to take all the kids of my life to Africa because it is the best educational experience, I think. So we stay in really good camps. We stay in tented camps wherever we can. Why would we stay in a tented camp instead of a regular hotel?
Bugs.
What?
Bugs.
Nope. There's, you know what, I see more bugs in Florida than I have in Africa. Honestly.
I don't think the experience of being out.
Exactly. Why? Because you walk in here, it's just like a regular hotel room. This is the outside, this is the inside. You've got oriental carpets on both sides of the bed. You go into the bathroom, looks like any hotel or bathroom at home, except for when you flush the toilet, the water goes in the opposite direction. And, you know, you're lying in bed and you're hearing lions, warhogs calling to each other all night. Don't look afraid. You have that zipper that's going to protect you. the day in the Ngorongoro crater, oh, it's like heaven on earth. It was so spectacularly beautiful. We passed a lot of other safari companies. People were sitting there at their picnic tables having their little sandwich from a box. And we came upon this clearing. How they hauled this stuff down here, I have no clue. But we had a chef cooking us a full barbecue. We had linen, china, cold drinks, and our own porta potty. Yeah. That's a treat because the guys can go back and check the towers as often as they want to. It's easier for them. And then this is the Four Seasons Serengeti. So this is the infinity pool. These are 2 of our guests. And these are elephants. Imagine watching the elephants from the pool at the Four Seasons. So because I was captivated, a few years later I went back and I went to Botswana. It's a completely different experience because you're off the roads and you don't see hundreds of elephants. You might see a few elephants, but they're up close, and you walk with the bushmen. There's only 130 of these people yet. You see one eat a yellow scorpion. I told you about the flights, the helicopter rides. One had no doors. For a girl that doesn't like heights too much, I made it through. We saw the meerkats. I mean, the people were so welcoming. Most of the camps, there was just us, and they knew our names, and they were just amazing. We had entertainment over almost every night. This is my camp. This was our tent. This tub probably would have held like 5 people, but who needed to get in it? Because we had an indoor shower, an outdoor shower, and our own private plunge pool. I was sitting here one day watching the elephants, and a monkey came over. He was about to jump in. I got up to get my camera, and I scared him away. Darn it. Now, India isn't on many people's bucket list, but you know what? It's as fascinating and mesmerizing as Africa. The people are amazing and so colorful. Every time, I went in the fall, on Tauck of course, and I was so pleasantly surprised. I will go back. This is a school bus with kids on a field trip going down the street, and they saw a bus of Westerners. They're all giving us the peace signs, waving out the windows. It seemed like any time we were going down the street, walking along, people would drop and smile, wave, or say namaste. I mean, they were so kind. Unbelievable. They didn't have any issues about us taking their pictures. Oh, we got to the Taj before it opened. There were more monkeys there than people. It was pretty cool. And we stayed in some of the best hotels in the world. The Oberoi hotels with a view of the Taj, really pretty amazing. Lots of choices of restaurants in case you don't like curry. Yeah, so if you have that on your list. I put this in here just because I wanted you guys to guess, what profession is this man?
Shoe polisher?
Security.
Keep going. What are these? What are these?
He's a dentist.
He's a dentist. Ding, 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 ding on the nose. Yes. Driving along, I saw this man. Yes, if you want some cheap dental work. That's why we travel, right? So, how many of you have been on a river cruise? What a great way to travel, huh? You're unpacked the whole time, you're getting off the boat, the destination is right there. Yeah. I think the hardest thing for all of you is to try to figure out who you should go with, because you know you're going to like the experience, but there's so many great companies out there, and we basically all go to the same ports. Our vessels are all the same size, and we all say we're all inclusive. So how do you tell one from the next? Well, I'll tell you what we do. So several years ago, more than a decade ago, Tauck decided that we would build our own vessel. So the family went around, they did a little spying, trying to figure out, you know, whose vessels had this and that, and what we wanted to do. And they came back and they said, wow, most of the vessels out there have a lot of people on board. We want our guests to have more space. We don't want them to feel so crowded. We want them to feel more relaxed. So we built our vessels, and the family that we have that builds the vessels thought we were crazy, because the first vessels we wanted to have 14 300 square foot suites, and I said those will never sell. And don't you know that those sold first? You know, they're always the suites. And then the next set of vessels, we wanted to have 22, but by then they realized that yes, we needed to do that. So we have more space per person. We have 2 sizes of vessel like everybody else does, 110 meters. Do you all know why the vessels are all the same size? They have to fit through the locks. We make them as big as we possibly can, but we still have to fit through the locks. So our 110 meter vessels, where a lot of the companies have 150 people, we have no more than 98. And then our longer vessels are 135 meters, where there's a company out there, Rhymes with Hiking, has 190 people. In the same space, we have no more than 130. So we have 4 Tauck directors on board. You get off and you're going in small groups. But when I think of all those extra people, I think going into the lounge to listen to the port briefing, I don't have to fight for a seat. You know, 60 more people, I think it might be challenging. Going down to dinner, it's open seating with us. I've been on other riverboats, and I remember people were lined up the stairs waiting for the restaurant doors to open to run in and get that table for 4 or that table for 6. I was on with Eric and Angela and the girls last summer, not this past, the one before, and there were 9 of us up in the lounge, and I realized, ooh, it's 10 past 8, who's hungry? So I went down to the maitre d', I said, hey, can you do a table for 9? He said, give me a few minutes. A few minutes later, table for 9, voila, nice and easy. So where we have 4 tour directors, they're with you from the beginning of the trip to the end of the trip. A lot of our trips will do a couple nights in each city before and after, 2 nights in Prague, 2 nights in Budapest, and they're with you from day 1 to the last day, breaking up in small groups, no more than 25 guests per local guide, and then you also have a tour director there too. And with us, everything really is included. You're gonna go, you don't need to bring your wallet. As soon as you get to the airport, it's all taken care of. Whatever you'd like to drink, all your beverages, all your gratuities, all your excursions, lots of choices of excursions that you can make ahead of time. Some are active, some are more cultural, some are more focused on culinary, all included in the price. I didn't put any of the suites or the cabins. I felt, you know, if you can deal with a bathroom that looks like this, you'll be okay. You know what? We did a river cruise panel, and I love being on those because a lot of times all my friends, and I'm friends with Diane, and I'm friends with all the other river cruise reps because we spend more time together probably than with our families. But they often talk about, you know, the 400 thread count sheets and the crystal stemware and the things like that. Yes, we have Hungarian goose down feather pillows, you know, we have all that stuff, but our focus is really something else. Our focus is, we're a tour operator. We've been a tour operator since 1925, so we're always focused on what you do when you get off of the vessel. Because we want you to be free and be in the moment, so you're comfortable when you're on board, but when you get off, we want to show it to you in the best way that we can find. So we'll take you to all these palaces and castles after hours. We're bringing caterers and performers, and it's just us, and you'll have an exclusive evening inside. We do a lot of those experiences. We go up to Jungfrau on our Amsterdam to Bern itinerary, which is the top of Europe. So because we do all of those things, it's a little bit different, and I think a little bit more immersive. We also have a number of small ships that we work with. We work mostly with Ponant. This is a French company. They have 240 passenger vessels and 180 passenger vessels, and one 60 passenger sailing ship. Metropolitan we use in the Galapagos, Silver Sea we use in the Galapagos, and we use Windstar from Lisbon to Barcelona with 2 nights in each city before and after, and the Aegean. So we have all of these. We have 24 itineraries, lots of small ship cruise itineraries, because we feel that there are lots of places that you can get to, but they're not so easy by land. So if we take you by sea, it's a little bit easier. How many of you know where Spitsbergen is? Where is it? Norway, right. It's the 36th largest island. It is between Norway and the Arctic Circle, and it's known to have more polar bears than residents. It didn't have lots more residents than the polar bears devoured them. It's not how it works. So that's why we go there by small ships, because it's so pristine. It's known for its glaciers, its puffins, its reindeers, its walruses, its whales. We also do Greece and Turkey on a small 148 passenger vessel. We get off in Santorini, and you're not waiting in line to go up in the funicular. We take you by another way, a private Zodiac. We're going to take you to Naflion. How many of you have been to Naflion? It's a hidden gem. It really is, on the tip of the Peloponnese. So you get to do things you might not get to do any other way. And again, everything's included. All your gratuities, your beverages, all your excursions, and usually a pre and a post. This is our 60 passenger sailing ship that we sail from Malta to Monaco, and I used to be the tour director running that and also our Sicily trip. So we start out in Malta, we do an overnight, we see that great island, and then we get on board the boat. And when we get on board, we have dinner, then we're welcomed up onto the top deck, and it's dark out, and the captain's putting the sails up, and the capital of Malta is Valletta. It's a walled city. It's all lit up at night. So the sails are going up, the wind's in your hair, you're listening to Enya and beautiful music going on, and the city's getting smaller, and it's just a beautiful way to start this adventure. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a cruise, it's an adventure. Then we stop in Giardini Naxos for Taormina. Taormina is beautiful, and I imagine many of you have been there. But instead of being an hour away in the port of Catania, we're right there, so we just go right up the hill. From Taormina, we go to the Aeolian Islands. We go through the Straits of Messina. We go to the island of Lipari. and then we go to Stromboli. And this is the afternoon off of Stromboli. So this is the volcano. Do you see the steam? I took this picture. How could I take this picture if I was on that ship? Because the captain will drop some zodiacs and he'll find a beautiful backdrop for us to go and go around the ship under sail so we can get our pictures of the ship under sail. And then in the evening, we'll have dinner outside, and then we'll be welcomed again up to the sun deck, but it's the moon deck at that time. We'll have limoncello, we'll have our desserts of tiramisu, and then we'll be watching the fireworks show. Stromboli puffs usually once every 15 minutes. It's known as a beacon to the sailors because it's so consistent. Yeah, and it's amazing. The next day we'll go into the town of Amalfi, anchor right there off of Amalfi. How many of you have been there? Do you remember it to be peaceful and calm? Because when we go there, it is. We go there around 8:30 in the morning, and there's nobody there. The baker's just putting his goods in the window, and it's really, there's nobody there. And then when the lollipops from all the cruise ships come, it's our exit to go out and go up to Ravello and have this amazing lunch overlooking the Amalfi Coast. And we go to Ponza in the Pontine Islands, which we would always tell our guests at our briefing, whatever you do, don't go home and tell your friends about Ponza, because it's such a hidden gem. Yeah. Then we'll go to Elba. In Elba, many of you might know of Elba from history, where Napoleon was exiled. So we do a tour around the island, and the tour ends at this farm. It's a farm where they grow grapes, and they make wine. And so we go down this crushed limestone driveway with olive trees on each side, overlooking the Mediterranean. And as we're coming into the farm, we hear this very beautiful woman's voice. And she was one of the season's winners of the Italian version of The Voice. And it's just amazing, that voice. And then we get to sample the wine and all the good stuff. And then we go to Corsica, the very southernmost tip of Corsica, to Bonifacio. Beautiful fjords, limestone fjords. It's it's up on a hill. The town is up on a hill, and there's a small town down below. It's just a picturesque setting. Then we go to Monaco, and we spend a couple nights at the Fairmont. You know what? It's a really good trip. But that's why we do things by small ship, because most of those places, it's hard to get to any other way. And you'll have choices. That ship has a swim platform, as most of the ships that we work with do. So you get to jump off, go for a swim, go kayaking. It's all taken care of for you. Go to Antarctica, we do all those things. I mentioned our events. We do a few events each year, and then we have the jazz event, the Tuscan Sun event in October. Anybody want to take a stab at who the keynote speaker is on that? Francis Mays, the author of Under the Tuscan Sun. Yeah. And lastly, I wanted to mention our family trips. I feel there's nothing better to do. If you have kids in your lives and you want to really connect with them, it's seamless, it's easy. The choreography, you don't have to think about a thing. So I've done a few of these with my nephews. I don't have my own kids, but I borrow kids. And I feel like this kid, Daniel, when he was graduating high school, I didn't know what to get him for a gift. He lives in Massachusetts. I'm in Florida, so I don't see him very much. So I would see him at Thanksgiving, Christmas, I didn't have a strong connection with him. I always knew how he was because I would talk to my brother, but I really didn't know who he was. So I called him before I booked this. I said, Daniel, do you want to go on a trip? Sure, Aunt Jennifer. So I booked the Canadian Rockies family trip. Our family trips are called bridges because it's all about bridging the 3 generations. There's grandparents, parents, and kids on every single trip. And the reason why I booked the bridges, he turned 18 on the last day. I didn't have to book, but it was more active. We did guided hikes almost every day. We got the fun cart at Jasper, which allowed us to go play. We went bowling, we played mini golf, we went out on the kayaks, we did all kinds of fun stuff. Day 2, he told me it was the most beautiful place he'd ever seen. It was really so much fun. He was ordering venison, bison, all kinds of stuff off the menu that he'd never got in Marlborough, Massachusetts. Yeah. And one of the fun things was my mom turned it out to be the cool grandparent instantly when she went whitewater rafting, because he never expected my mom to go whitewater rafting ever. And then last year with Eric, Angela, and the girls, we did a river cruise. So I did that with my nephews too. I had been a tour director in France I'd been to this aqueduct probably 50 times, but never did I get into the top. But that day we had exclusive access into the top where the water actually went from one side to the next. We went to a private family farm in Provence. We learned all about the French cowboys, and then they put on a bullfight for us. Didn't kill anything. We learned how to make art out of chocolate at this famous cooking school. Recognize them? Day 2, we had a choice of a bike ride around Paris or a bus ride around Paris. So we did the bike ride, and we met up with the people from the bus. And after that, we went straight up in the Eiffel Tower. There was no waiting in line, and we had lunch. Well, it happened to be Andrew's 13th birthday that day, so poor guy over Gâteau Chocolat had to tell him, it's not going to be like this every year. We played pétanque with the locals. This day, Vivier, I don't think the kids probably would have been into that town so much because it was a beautiful medieval town that adults can really connect with. But the tour directors were really good. They told the kids when they participated in something, they got a piece of paper with a croissant on it. And they had to collect their croissants. So every day they were collecting. So they told the kids, there's a lot of cats in this town. You can come back with the most pictures of kitties. So they got their new croissant, and at the end of the trip they could trade it in for a jersey, a cap, or soccer ball or something. This was day 4. Do you think the kids had a good time?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that window's so short when those kids are young. If you've got kids in your lives and you can do something like this, I strongly recommend it. And like Angela and Eric are doing with their kids, travel I feel is the best education there is. Like Angie said, you know, it opens their minds, it exposes them to so much. If you can do it, it would be awesome. So I want to thank you very much for your kind attention. You've been awesome, and thank you for coming. For those of you that are familiar with us, you know that we never discount, but as a gesture of gratitude for you joining us tonight, we'll offer you a complimentary night. So if you come see our friends at Wallace Pearson within the next month, we'll give you either the first hotel or the last hotel, a night free that always comes with breakfast and transfer. Thank you.